The smiles and warmth veiling a stark warning from the man tasked with telling the EU what it needs to do in order to catch up with the economies of China and the US.
What we are trying to do now becomes existential itself. And that's why we care so much. And that's why the report will argue for what I defined in a speech, a radical change, which will have to be urgent and concrete.
His report endorses increasing investments in industry by up to 5% of the EU's GDP, the equivalent of nearly 800 billion euros per year, the highest amount since the post-war period. It states that disposable income per capita in the US has grown almost twice as fast than in the EU since 2000, meaning households on this side of the Atlantic are seeing more of a squeeze. It was EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen who tasked Draghi to put together the report.
What we have to do is look at the political will to have these common European projects and then define are we going to finance them through new national contributions or other national contributions or new own resources.
Those so-called own resources are when the EU takes on debt rather than the EU's governments themselves. It's happened before, and it is endorsed in this new report, but it's politically complicated around EU capitals, who are resistant to handing over power to Brussels. The report's blaming decreasing levels of productivity in the EU and says more needs to be spent on innovation and decarbonising industry in order to counter that. It warns too much effort's gone into preserving traditional industrial heavyweights in Europe, like German car makers. Draghi's report is being backed by many senior economists here in Europe, but they're calling for less talk and more action.
We've talked about it. We've actually even claimed to agree among ourselves that these are our strategic goals in Europe, but we haven't acted on it yet. And until the EU leaders actually act upon, and hopefully many of the recommendations in the report, quite frankly, I don't think either Beijing or Washington is going to pay much attention.
There have been fears that the report will be used to drive down workers' wages in Europe to compete. Mario Draghi insists that finding the investments needed is the only way to protect the high quality of life that citizens of the European Union enjoy.